Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our daily press review, and we're glad to be joined by Ms. Nafisa El Sabagh, Chief Editor of Al Masriyat. Thank you for joining us, and good morning.
You're welcome. Good morning.
And we start off from Al Ahram, and we read its main banner: intensifying the supervision on the roads to preserve the lives of the citizens. The President says following the highest standards of safety and security and preventing the movement of extra loads. The President tackles with the Minister of Transportation the project of the National Roads Net and follows up with the Kalyub Bridge accident. And El Gyushi says a transportation university in cooperation with Germany and a special court for the crimes of assaulting the utilities. Ms. Nafisa, how do you see the President's speech, the recent speech by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and his stress on road safety, and which we suffer a lot from here in Egypt?
It's very important to take care about the road safety in because actually we are one of the most
of the highest
rates
in road accidents.
In road accidents. So part of it, of course, is the new roads that are being built right now, and I think another part should be having a system for the road, for everything. It's it's signal system that should be electronic. Everyone should commit to it. It's not the old idea, the old way we use as asking an officer to stand at every place. It's not working anymore, and it cannot work anymore. So there are so many systems for taking care of roads.
We have to think about new ideas, out-of-the-box ideas for planning roads,
at least apply what are the most recent systems
used
that
worldwide.
are there worldwide, and make sure that everyone who commits a violation should be penalized, because this is the only way to make people commit to the rules.
Enforcing the law, of course, is the most important part of this issue.
Yes, yes, it's a very important part.
And still with Al Ahram front page, and we read: an Egyptian-Greek Cypriot summit the day after tomorrow. El-Sisi is due to meet with the Greek President and the Greek Prime Minister tomorrow in Athens. A three-way Egyptian-Greek Cypriot summit tomorrow to tackle increasing joint cooperation. Tsipras says the three-way coalition is not against anyone but rather to serve the people of the whole region. And head of the Egyptian-Greek Business Council says Greece is one of the biggest investors in Egypt, and we are aiming to attract more of its investment. And still with the same issue from Al Masri Al-Yawm, page 5, we read: the Greek summit, the last step towards redrawing the map of the Middle East natural gas. Cairo, Athens, and Nicosia is a coalition to protect the maritime borders and the problems of some agriculture products on the agenda of the Egyptian Cypriot Greek Business Council. And Ms. Nafisa, how the importance of Egyptian-Greek cooperation, especially in the field of the gas, as we see redrawing the map of the Middle East natural gas, especially in the field of natural gas and investment, of course, in general?
I think basically the most important thing should be the natural gas issue, especially after discovering a very big oil reserve under the sea. This area that's not finally defined, the borders in this area had not finally defined between Egypt, Cyprus, and Israel as well.
Right.
So actually it comes amid this conflict, this legal conflict between that Israel raised against Egypt, and yesterday they had a verdict against Egypt, and they are trying to push to resume, to take a very high compensation from Egypt and resume getting the natural gas from Egypt. Otherwise, Egypt should buy the Israeli gas. So it's sort of a conflict of interest between Israel and Egypt, and now actually reaching sort of an agreement and with Cyprus a way out partially from this thing until we can really use our newly discovered natural gas.
Right. In addition to in the field of natural gas, how do you expect cooperation to take place between Egypt and Greece in the field of investment?
You know, Greece is not a very important country in this regard. Greece is a poor European country. So basically, it will not be very profitable to Egypt to have this kind of cooperation. Any cooperation would be a plus, of course. So, but we should not expect something high out of it, because two poor countries are trading with each other, so no high expectation should be there.
Right, and back to Al Ahram front page, and we read some local news. 400 MPs in the coalition of supporting the Egyptian state. Al Agati ends the crisis of Al Sadr and announces Ahmed Saad, a general secretary of the House of Representatives. And the Nile says the government is not aiming to have any differences with the House of Representatives, and our program is ready to be presented to the parliament. And Sahar Nasr says 1.5 billion US dollars enters the treasury of the state on the 19th of this month. Still with the same issue from Al Masri Al-Yawm, we read the government challenges the House of Representatives. Saad is given the post of the Secretary General, and Bakri says Al Agati put the government an embarrassing situation. And Okasha says, I shall not have an MP card signed by him. And Al Sadat invites the president of the different parties to discuss a parliamentary agenda. Still with the same issue from Al Yawm Al Sabagh, we read the parliament under the control of the Egyptian state coalition, announcing the coalition of the parliament majority at the end of the week, which comprises 400 MPs. And Saif Al Yazal meets with Badawi to make Al-Wafd join in. The negotiating table ends the differences in the love of Egypt and the free Egyptians. And the crisis of Al Sadr ends with the appointment of a new general secretary of the House of Representatives. Voters cast their ballots on Sunday in the parliamentary elections in some constituencies in Beheira, Bani Suef and Alexandria. This came in accordance with judicial verdicts to rerun the elections in these constituencies. The voting process started at 9 a.m. and ended at 9 p.m. Cairo local time. The runoff will be held on December 14th and 15th abroad, and on December 15th and 16th inside Egypt. How do you comment on the electoral process so far, which is of course at its end, almost at its end? How do you see the electoral process and the voters turnout?
The voters actually, most of them decided not to go and vote, regardless to the reason, and regardless to anything. Now we have a parliament, which is a good point. And there should be, I'm sure that some very, very good person have been elected during this election, and I hope they would have create a different voice, political voice in the parliament, in the discussion that should be coming out, and this would be in favor of Egypt as a state.
What do you think are the priorities of the upcoming parliament? What do you think is on top of the agenda of the upcoming parliament?
I can, what I think is my point of view, but what would they decide? What's appearing till now is that the majority actually is continuing in a direction that's not actually in favor of Egypt that I really would like to see, because having a fight to get 2/3 of the members of the parliament to play a role that only to support the state, or it's not the state, it's in the political regime. Actually, it's against the political regime itself. Giving the impression that you are being moved by the political regime is against this regime, even if you intend to support it, so you are not supporting the regime, you are giving bad impression about it.
Right.
The other point about this fake battle about Al Sadr and who is be appointed to be the head of the parliament. I think it's a fabricated battle. It's not real battle. So it's just a way to say that we are here, we are parliamentarians. So it's just as if they are standing by the running, trying to run a show before getting into the real...
Right. Of course, this is the third and final step on Egypt's roadmap. How do you see its effect on the international community? How do you think it will positively affect Egypt's image abroad?
You know, now I think there are major issues on the political level that are more important to the international community. It's basically combating terrorism is one of the most important issues to the international community. And actually what happened, regardless to what different states say about the Egyptian regime and about Egypt, they have a very close cooperation with Egypt. And we have witnessed so many military engagement between or agreements between Egypt and different major states in the world. So I think it's not the matter of the image of Egypt now, it's a matter of the effect of this parliament on the internal political scene.
Right, and back to Al Ahram, and we read from its front page, the State Cases Authority says Egypt is not a party in the gas conflict, suspending any negotiations to import gas. The Petroleum Authority and the holding gas company appeal imposing compensations in favor of Israel, and judiciary sources say the verdict is related to trade firms, nothing to do with the Egyptian state. And the Prime Minister says we shall appeal the verdict in 6 weeks. Still with the same issue, and from Al Masri Al-Yawm we read, the gas returns to conflict between Egypt and Israel. The international arbitration fines Cairo $2 billion and the government freezes the negotiations of importing the gas. Suspending exporting the gas to Israel costs Egypt $2 billion, and the government appeals the verdict and freezes the negotiations of the different companies regarding importing gas from Israel. And still with the same issue from Al-Yawm Al-Sabagh we read, Israel hits Egypt in the trap of the international arbitration. The International Arbitrators Organization says that Egypt should pay $1.76 billion in favor of Tel Aviv because of the suspension of the gas supplies after the January revolution. The Egyptian Petroleum National Authority appeals the verdict before the Swiss courts. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail said that Egypt will appeal the ruling by the Geneva-based International Chamber of Commerce within 6 weeks to compensate Israel Electric Corporation and Eastern Mediterranean Gas Company with $1.7 billion and $288 million respectively, plus interest and legal expenses. IEC and EMG resorted to international arbitration after attacks on the pipeline in North Sinai stopped the flow of gas they had received according to a 20-year agreement with Egypt. In April of 2012, Egypt stopped its gas sales to Israel in a 20-year deal signed in 2005 following a year of sporadic attacks on the gas pipeline. The Prime Minister added that the government will suspend negotiations between companies and freeze the issuing of permits to companies importing gas from Israel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a report on this issue, and we'll be back.
Egypt said on Sunday appeal an order by international arbitrators to pay $1.76 billion in compensation to state-owned Israel Electric Corp for halting gas supplies 3 years ago and freeze gas import talks until the dispute was resolved. Egypt had been selling natural gas under a 20-year agreement. However, the deal collapsed in 2012 following months of attacks on the pipeline. Israel Electric IEC was forced to turn to more expensive fuels to generate electricity. The company took the issue to arbitrators at the International Chamber of Commerce $4 billion from the suppliers Egyptian Natural Gas Holding Company, EGAS, and the Egyptian General Petroleum Corporation, EGPC, and the firm operating the pipeline, Eastern Mediterranean Gas, EMG. IEC said on Sunday that arbitrators had ordered EGPC and EGAS to pay compensation of $1.76 billion plus interest and legal expenses. It said Israel Electric will act towards the implementation of the arbitration ruling through dialogue with the gas companies. EGPC and EGAS said in a statement that the arbitrator had also ordered them to pay $288 million to EMG and that they would appeal both awards. They said the compensation award to EMG amounted to about 19% of the $1.5 billion it had sued for, while the award to Israel Electric amounted to under 40% of the total it was seeking. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail said on Sunday an appeal filed within 6 weeks.
Welcome back. And regarding the gas issue, how do you see the conflict going on? How do you comment on the negotiations regarding the gas issue?
Okay, I'm not an expert in this part, to be very frank, but based on what I know, the general information I have is that it's not Egypt who violated the contract. Basically, it is Israel who violated the contract, because what happened in Egypt is sending the gas in sometimes when the pipes had been forcefully stopped working. So it was not the decision of the Egyptian companies.
Right.
This is number one. Number two, Israel headed to not specific, a court that is not the one who should tackle such an disagreement, because in the contract there is another court, an Egyptian court, that should be the direction for any claiming such a death.
Right.
The other point is that actually even the verdict itself, part of the verdict missed one of the claims because of the court is not specialized, is not authorized to consider it.
Right. And back to Al-Ahram for some regional news, and we read Daesh assassinates the governor of Aden. A car bombing claimed by Daesh on Sunday killed the governor of Yemen's second city, Aden, a day after the UN's envoy visited to press for peace talks. A statement posted on Twitter by the group said it was behind a blast that hit the convoy of Jafar Saad, Tawahi neighborhood, killing him and 8 bodyguards. And I think we have also a report on this issue, and we'll be right back.
The governor of Aden was killed by a car bomb on Sunday in Yemen's southern port city, that Daesh claimed responsibility for. A local official and residents said at least 6 members of General Jafar Mohammed Saad's entourage also died in the attack, which targeted the governor on his way to work. They added that 7 people were wounded. The attack came in the Tawahi district of Aden, where President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi has returned to oversee a war against Iran-allied Houthis. Daesh, in a statement posted, said it detonated a car laden with explosives as Saad's convoy passed. The group also posted what it said were photos of the booby-trapped vehicle as a white van carrying Saad drove past, then 2 other photos of a huge ball of fire which it said were taken as the bomb exploded. Daesh's local branch has stepped operations since the outbreak of civil war in Yemen, emerging as a forceful rival to Al-Qaeda in the peninsula, the main militant group in the country in recent years. Attacks have been launched on security bases and on mosques run by Houthi forces who control the capital Sana'a. The Houthis have been fighting a coalition which began airstrikes against in March.
Welcome back, and we have only around half a minute, so we can quickly comment on, of course, the continuation of violence by Daesh.
It proves every now and then, it proves every day that Daesh should have a unified, universal strategy to fight, to work against this organization. And it should be partially by weapons and partially and very importantly cultural process inside in each and every country, meanwhile going parallel in every place and in the same time.
At the same time. Right, Ms. Nafisa El Sabagh, Chief Editor of Masriyat, many thanks for joining us and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now stop this Press Digest and we'll be back to resume the rest of the segments of the breakfast show, so stay tuned to us.